again. So, looking back through my channel over the last year or so, it's come to my attention that I've probably made close to 40 odd videos. I haven't counted, but it looks something like that. It's quite a lot. Now, if you're in the process of doing some kind of restoration on the Spitfire, or you're just interested in what I've done, then that's quite a lot to trawl through. Most of them are probably at least half an hour long, some even longer, so there's a fair whack of footage in there. So I wanted to sort of encapsulate it and bring it all into just one concise, semi-concise, as concise as I ever am, video showing how I've done it, what I've spent, what I had to buy, where it started, where it is now. So first of all, why? Why the restoration in the first place? So, two answers to that. One is the very esoteric, whimsical answer, which is, you know, you only live once, time is short, too short to not go out there and try something new and see what happens. The second answer is the practical purposes. I used to drive a little two-seater rear-wheel drive smart roadster coupe. I'll put a picture up now if I remember. Awesome little car, great fun to drive. Completely impractical as any kind of family wagon. Obviously it's a two-seater roadster, but it was so much fun to drive, especially in the summer, roof off. And when I sold it and went to normal cars, I really missed it. I really missed just driving for the fun of driving. And it's been in the back of my mind, I want another two-seater convertible at some point. Now, at work, I've got my laptop set up, and I'm always watching car shows on that. Restorations, rebuilds, teardowns, you know, engine refurbs, all that kind of stuff, and really enjoy it. And it sort of encapsulated my imagination a little bit, and I thought, would I be capable of doing something like that? Probably not, but if you don't try, you're never going to know. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to bite the bullet, pull the pin, and just go and buy something and start doing it. So my criteria for buying a car, I didn't go out looking for a Triumph Spitfire. It's not like I've always wanted one of these cars since I first started driving. Mum and Dad used to have one, or anything like that. I'd never even seen a Triumph Spitfire until I went and actually had a look at this car. It was more a case of I had to have something that would A, fit in here. So straight away you are ruling out a lot of cars. It has to be something small. I wanted it to be cheap. So in the UK, if a car is more than 40 years old, it's classified as a classic, and therefore you don't have to pay road tax on it. So that was also a consideration. I wanted a two-seater, again going back to my smart car days, rear-wheel drive convertible roadster. So a small, cheap, classic rear-wheel drive convertible roadster doesn't really give you a huge amount of options here in the UK. I didn't want an MG midget. I've never liked them. I've never liked the look of them. I don't know what it is about them. I just don't like them. And you could argue this is, you know, very, very similar to a midget, and yeah, it probably is. I've never driven one, but I didn't want one of those. So I kept keeping a lookout on the old Facebook and saw this thing pop up for sale. It was a bit of a shed. It was in a barn. It was covered in boxes. You know, it didn't look great, I'll be honest. The guy was asking at least 4 times what it was worth, and after a bit of toing and froing and negotiating, I bought the car. He dropped it off for me, and then the work began. So the way this is going to work is, rather than just me talking at the camera for the next half an hour, I'm going to go back through my previous photos, videos, pull in all that information, and I'll do a voiceover and I'll talk you through how we got from here to here. On the whole, I'm pleased. I think it's come out to the best of my ability with my limited budget and resources. If I had more money, I could have done a better job. If I had better or more tools, I could have done a better job. But that's not what it's about, is it? Restoration is about learning new skills, the experience of doing it, and at the end having something you can be hopefully reasonably proud to drive around in. That's, you know, that's at least the way I see it. And you're either into this kind of thing or you're not. Some people will just, if they want a classic car, they'll go and buy a fully finished classic car, and they're quite happy to pay 10, 15, 20 grand, whatever, because they got the money. They're not going to go through all this faff, they don't have the time, whatever the reason, they just want the car, and that's cool. If you're one of those people, cool, props to you, you've got more money than I have. But I didn't, I wanted the experience of actually doing it myself, hence why undertaking the restoration. So, with all that being said, let's cue the slideshow.
So this is the day I picked it up, or it was delivered, should I say. It was raining, wet, miserable. I think it was January, and the weather's always terrible down here in January, as it is most places, I suppose. It doesn't look too bad from the outset if you're sort of used to looking at cars like this. It doesn't look too bad. It ain't that good, I'll be honest. Someone's painted it red for some reason. Not sure why. The car was originally white, so not sure why it was red. All the dash, as you can see, has got a nice layer of mould on it. It's delaminating. There's a replacement floor in the passenger side which had to be ripped out because it was just tack welded in and then not very good. You can see how long it's been sat in the barn for. There's just an inch of dust and grime everywhere, wires hanging out. There was evidence of a small fire in the back, which, you know, isn't great when you're buying a car. The engine, I was told, was running, turned over freely. It didn't. It was absolutely jam solid, nothing covering the inlet manifold. There was rust in there. It took me days to scrape those cylinders out. I'll be honest, at this point I sort of thought, what the hell have I done? Why did I pay £1,000? That's what I paid for it, £1,000, which is easily twice what it's worth. Why did I pay £1,000 for this wreck of a car? But, you know, too late. It's there now. What are you going to do? In the original video I'm talking about how it's meant to be fine, the chassis is fine, doesn't need any welding, the engine's fine. Absolute tosh. The whole thing needed stripping down and tearing apart. So this is the picture I was using for a reference of what I ideally wanted the car to look like when it was finished. I'm guessing this is a freshly finished restoration. It was a white Triumph Spitfire, the same as what I've just bought, and I thought, man, if I can make something that looks half as good as that, I'll be really, really happy. But to be honest, I didn't think I ever would. This is the box of bits that I also got with the car. Brand new stainless steel exhaust, that's the good bit. You can see the bonnet on the left there has got loads of Bondo filler stuck all over the wings. It's been repainted a few times. You can see the seats up on the desk there. I've got that horrible dogtooth pattern on them. They're torn, they're yellow, they stank. And there was just a big cardboard box full of loads of rusty bits. I had no idea where any of it went, I'll be completely honest. I thought I'm just going to work it through like a big jigsaw puzzle, one part at a time, and in the end, hopefully it's all there. It wasn't. I figured it was best to tackle one part at a time. So the body came off, that sat outside in the front, covered in a tarpaulin because I've got nowhere else to put it, and broke it down to the bare chassis and decided let's just take this apart one bit at a time and again refurb it, put it all back together again, and hopefully it turns out nicely. At this point again, I was under the apprehension that the chassis didn't require any welding. That's what the guy I bought it from told me. Chassis good, engine's good, so you'll have no bother with those. Oh yeah, little did I know. And here's the body sat outside where it was going to live for the next 6 months or so. It looks reasonably straight, and to be fair, the actual bodywork on it, other than the floor in the passenger side, which had to be ripped out and redone, the rest of it actually wasn't too bad. So I say it was a bit of a shed, but the body was actually in surprisingly good condition, I suppose. So the first thing for me to do was to put a breaker bar on the engine and start rotating it to make sure everything moved freely. Of course it didn't. It went halfway around and stopped, and that then resulted in me having to pull the head off, and this is what I was greeted with when I pulled said head off. You can see 3 of the cylinders don't look too bad, although covered in carbon, but one is terrible. And we've got a close-up view of cylinder number 1. You can see the rust ring in there. That was what was stopping me rotating the engine around freely. There's water in the cylinder. There's rust all over it. Luckily the cylinder walls aren't too bad, but from this view you just think, oh my god, the whole thing is complete junk. I actually compression tested it when I finished the car, and amazingly I've got, I believe it's £150 on 3 cylinders and 120 on 1. God knows how with the state of that, but obviously the below that wasn't too bad. Apologies for the low reds, but this is the engine after I finished scrubbing it with, oh god, I can't remember what I used, WD-40, wire wool, Brillo pads, the whole shebang. And then here we are with the finished chassis with engine on it after it's all been put back together, all the welding's done. I didn't take any photos of the welding when I was doing it because I was just head down trying to get it done desperately, and you know what it's like. But there we go, chassis done. So this is the first point where the body has actually gone back onto the car again, and it's really weird after staring at a chassis for so long to actually see something that resembles a car one more time. You can see we've got the bonnet back on it again, and it's had a sand down to get the old paint off, or most of it, and then it's had a guide coat in high build primer in grey, and then gone over that again with the DA sander just so we can sort of start to see where all the high and low parts are on the metal. You can see on the outside edge of that front wing there, she's a bit mangled. Looks like it's been repainted a few times over the years as well. And then we start to put the dash back in. All the dash wood parts were taken out, all the old lacquer was chipped and peeled off them, and then we use a walnut wrap veneer to go over them again. All the instruments were taken apart, cleaned out, needles repainted, all the wiring redone on the back of them, and then stuck it all back in again just to see what it looks like, and it looks surprisingly nice. You can also see I've reupholstered the driver's seat there. It's not finished, it still need to pull some of the bagginess out of the leather, but we've taken out that horrible black and white dogtooth disgusting cotton thing and just done them in a black pleather instead. And then we've got both seats reupholstered, all the carpets put in as well, and start to tidy some of the wiring up on the dashboard, and the inside suddenly starts to look like a car again. I must admit at this point I'm focusing a lot on the interior rather than doing the bodywork. In retrospect I should have done the bodywork first, got all that painted and then gone round, and I'm worried about the interior, but I think by that point I've been doing it for 9 months or so, and I just wanted to be able to sit in it and have it feel and look something like a car again. This is now all the panels on. Everything's been rubbed down, checked for lumps and bumps, filled where necessary. Not much filler, to be completely honest with you. It was pretty straight to begin with, and then given a coat of high build primer, and she is pretty much ready for final paint. And then here's the bonnet after I think it's 3 coats of final paint on that one. It's a Triumph paint code 19, Old English white. It's quite a classic colour for British cars of the era. It's like an ivory off-white colour. At first I assumed the car was actually going to be white, like brilliant whites, and I was a bit sort of bummed out that it was that colour, but in retrospect it actually looks much better. And then the same view from the back, same thing. I think it's three layers of top coat on the boot, and getting down along the wings was good fun to paint. As you can see, the amount of space down the side there to work with, you got to be very, very careful. Start from the front and work your way back, making sure your clothes don't touch, the air lines don't touch. It's a bit of a nightmare, but again, needs and must. I had no other choice. And then we've got the rest of the interior in, the wheels have been painted, and we started to put the lights, the bumpers and all the sort of final bits and bobs on, and now it's really starting to look like a car again. It's when it starts to get quite exciting. And that's a similar view, but now we've got the doors finished as well. Took the doors off down to the workshop, same thing, had to pull them apart, they were rusty. I had a replacement door on the driver's side because the other one was just too far gone. Taking all the glass, all the runners, all the channels out, cleaning the glass, putting it back in and getting all the hinges fitted again. And now it is pretty much good to go. That's the same view from the back. Again, all the trim on, lights, exhaust, bumpers, all that kind of thing. Make sure all the lights work. This is now at its driving state, ready to go out on the road. And the only other thing I've done really since then, other than a few internal modifications like the gas struts for the bonnet and the fan and those sorts of things, was the wheels. These are the MGF 6-spoked, 6 square spoke I think they're called, 15-inch wheels with new tyres. Some people don't like the bigger wheels on the Spitfire. I think they look pretty cool, to be honest, so they're staying on. And then here she is going out for her first drive.
Yeah, love. A little bit rattly on the bonnet, but you know, didn't fit particularly well. Sounds like there's a box of Lego in there somewhere. I'll have to sort that out. quick brake check. Good as it's going to get. You've got to really lean on those brakes. Still needs a bit of tuning, a bit chuggy. Not too bad. Oh, still indicator still on. Very heavy on the steering, but apparently that's pretty normal. Nice on the springs though, I'll give it that. It doesn't bang or crunch when you're going over speed bumps. Wheel this one, see how bad it is? Right, that's alright. Get in there. Oops, that's first. Down on that. So there we go, guys. That was my journey from start to finish, more or less, with the old Spit. Obviously it doesn't come close to portraying the amount of time and labour you have to put in it. On the whole, looking back at it now, it's quite enjoyable, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, there are times that will have you pulling what little hair you've got left out, for sure. Some jobs took me days to do. Things that should be simple and just weren't. Things like the pinion seal on the rear diff. Trying to pull the old one out, it's an old leather and metal seal. And I was there for a couple of days hacking into it, trying to grab it with grips and pliers and pulling and pushing. Again, it took me a couple of days lying under the car, just wailing away at it, and it's hard work, physically hard work, and mentally draining. When you haven't done it, and you sort of have to admit defeat, put your tools down and walk inside. It plays on you, well, it does me anyway. I go inside thinking, what the hell have I got to do to get out? But benefit, you know, you sleep on it, you come back the next day, and you tackle the problem with a fresh perspective, and 9 times out of 10 you'll get it. A lot of the problems you'll get with the car will be electrical gremlins. You'll get a bad ground somewhere, and it will have some weird effect that when you turn one indicator on, the other indicator will come on, and you'll be looking at relays and switches, and it will turn out there was just a bad ground somewhere, and you'll kick yourself for it. Yeah, things like that, it can be a real pain in the ass. But if you take your time, you're methodical, and you go through it one bit at a time, it's totally achievable. As I've said many times, I'm not a skilled restoration guy, mechanic, or anything like that at all. It's not what I do for a living. And again, if I can do it, any of you guys can do it. So yeah, just go for it. Have fun. Try and enjoy it. And with that, I shall see you all next time, no doubt. Until then, have fun. Take it easy. See you later on.